I am going to help you make decisions and commit to them. Learn how to navigate difficult conversations and say no without guilt. Let's begin by building your inner strength. Welcome. I'm Angela Dryden, your life coach. Well, hello, my friends. I am glad to have you here and that you have tuned in for yet some other great content and information that I want to share with you about creating awareness. So before I dive into today's topic, I first of all want to welcome anybody that's new that hasn't tuned in before. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. I hope you find some great content that's going to help you as you kind of move forward in your life. That's really what I try to do here. I want to try to create some things that just help you to create a little bit more of an awareness in your life. That's the key. All right, so I want to dive into today's topic. So today's topic is on actually not creating, but observing. I say create a lot. So observing our unawareness of our disbelief. So what I want to share is some information, some insights that might help you see at times in your life where you are unaware of your disbelief. Like you're not thinking that it's your disbelief that's the problem. You're thinking it's something else. And you don't believe you're unaware. You think you're very aware. Like I'm living present. I'm in the moment. But then this awareness is, you're just not getting what you're wanting out of life. However, our response is always the key, right? So the way that we respond to anything coming in our lives makes a big impact on how we show up and how we, show up for others, but truly how you show up for yourself, because that really matters. So our unawareness of our disbelief. When it comes to that, there are some key things that we might say to ourselves when we are experiencing disbelief or an awareness, either one. And things like, this shouldn't be happening. This isn't supposed to happen this way. Something's gone wrong. I don't know why this is happening to me. Why is this happening? So we're having thoughts of things that are going on in your life, and you're like, something's gone wrong. I don't like where I'm at. We're feeling like there's just something's wrong with the puzzle, right? Where it's not coming together like it's supposed to come together. And anytime we question ourselves like that, majority of the time when we're questioning ourselves that something's gone wrong, it's usually because we're comparing ourselves to either something outside of us or something within us. We're comparing that we should be doing better. We're getting a lot of judgment in there as well. So we're having this moment of kind of disconnecting from self and feeling like the actions I've done, the things that I was trying to create is not happening. So something's gone wrong with this. This is outside of me. So something needs to be fixed out here. And so when we start to have those kinds of thoughts, that's a really good indication to help us just kind of pause for a moment and check in with ourselves about our unawareness of our disbelief. And it's just a good thing to just stop and pause. You don't have to look at anything or go dive any deeper into it or try to change it right away, get to something better because we don't like where we're at. I just want to offer that that's a good time just to be like, oh, I might be having some unawareness stuff. I wonder what's, I'm just kind of want to look at that for a second. I want to observe my own thoughts when it comes to that. What's coming up for me? And just kind of become the observer of you in that process instead of trying to overly examine it and kind of pick out things that are wrong or that you need to do better. Just sit with it, right? So we got to become an observer first of our unawareness of our disbelief. Okay, so now that we're kind of just willing to observe it, I want to give you 3 scenarios that could come up in your life that can kind of help you to detect and see some unawareness of your disbelief. Now, the first one is the blame game. We blame things outside of us. We blame people. We blame situations. We blame circumstance. We blame stuff that's going on. We blame things outside of us that is why this has gone wrong. And when you find yourself doing that, that's an indication that you might not be aware of your disbelief that you're having. So there's an old song I want to share with you. And actually, my grandma used to sing it to me, stuff like that. And it's called, There's a Hole in Your Bucket, Dear Liza, Dear Liza. So it's a really old time kind of, just like a folklore kind of song thing. And why I want to share that with the blame game is that in the song, I think it's Henry is his name, and Liza's his wife. So Liza's asking Henry to go fetch her some water in a bucket. And he's telling her, well, I can't, there's a hole in my bucket, dear Liza. And then she says, well, get some straw and fix it. And he goes, well, the straw is too big, I can't fix it. She goes, well, get a knife and cut it. Well, my knife is too dull, so I can't cut it. Well, get a blade and sharpen it. Well, the blade is dull, and I can't sharpen my knife on that. Well, get some water to wet it. Well, I can't wet it because I don't have any water because there's a hole in my bucket. So, right, we go round and round in this vicious cycle in our life. And we do this. And a lot of times we're doing it, and we're not realizing that we're doing it. We literally think we're just telling people what's happening, like telling them our story, instead of this circle that we're stuck in. We're going, oh, wait a minute. Like, I'm going from this to this to this, and it's literally just blaming the next thing or having another excuse, or I'm trying to, over-explain or justify my actions. When you're doing that type of stuff, you're finding yourself in that vicious circle. And that's what we do with blaming. So the best thing to do with blaming when it comes to this first step is just to observe it, right? We don't, just to see that it's possible that you're doing that it's coming up, and maybe seeing in what directions it's coming up and what's that looking like for you. And, is there a pattern? Is there sometimes that you're doing it more than others? Like, what's going on? And just, again, observing that unawareness of your disbelief. This is one that I would find myself doing, and I really justified this for a long time because I kept on saying, no, you don't understand. I just need more information. So I'm confused about my next step to take. And so what I've decided to tell myself is that I just need more information. So I do more research, and I listen to more podcasts. I read more books. I talk to more people. I get coached on things more often. And I'm doing this from a place of like, you don't get it. Like, I need to know, as soon as I hear like the words I need to hear, then I'll know that I've arrived and I can go forward with what I need to go forward. Instead of actually going forward on what I like to call faith, right? You just move forward on faith. Instead of doing that, we're waiting for this answer, whatever it looks like. We're not even sure what it looks like because we're just confused. We're confused and we believe that there is an answer and we're not sure where to find it at. And this is where I like to look at advertisements. So if you're into advertisement much, and I love to kind of look at advertisements because I am a coach and I'm advertising my services to lots of people. And when I'm doing that, it always seems like there's a how-to and then the fix, right? How to do this and that, and then the problem's going to be fixed. So we will go and we will search for the how-tos and thinking that this how to lose weight, how to gain better relationships, how to communicate better. So we're looking at all these how-tos and we're figuring if I just keep on reading this information, I am going to eventually find my solution. And we do it from a place that we're looking for the answer, but we're not taking any initiative. We're not moving forward with our thinking at all. We are literally just hoping that we're going to find something. So this is another key in which we are possibly unaware of our disbelief because we believe that something is going to make that answer for us, and we don't take the initiative to move forward at all. And that is kind of comes in that state of confusion. So when you feel confused and even kind of overwhelmed comes in this sometimes, like we feel overwhelmed, so we're just trying to like outsource, or we're trying to like outsource in the sense that we're looking for more solutions so that we can start to get out of it. And we're just confused. We're kind of stuck in that confusion cycle, and we're just looking for those how-tos, like how to do this, how to do that. If I just read this article, I'm going to find the answer. But then you read it, and then you kind of look at it, and you're like, that's not exactly what I wanted. So you go to the next, and you don't even try or apply anything that you read. So one of the things I love to do is reading. I love to read. And when I hear somebody give a book, and if I'm ready for another book, I'll tell them, I say, oh, thank you for that. I'm going to read that book. And I'll usually read it, and I'll actually get back to them and let them know, oh, I read that book. It was really good. And a lot of times people are shocked because they're like, oh, people tell me they're going to read a book, but they never really do it. And, I've done that before too. Don't get me wrong. I haven't always, done a really good job at that. But now it's interesting. I find myself that if I said I'm going to do something, I'm going to try to follow through with it because I want to gain that trust with myself. And what's interesting is when people give us suggestions and we still stay in confusion lane and we're not willing to actually apply or start to do something different, it's fascinating. Like, right? We think that something's gone wrong, that this is confusing. Like, there's no answer, there's no solution here. So again, we're stuck in our unawareness of our disbelief. All right, so that's the second one, right? So we've got the blaming, we've got the confusion, we're trying to look for the how-tos. So there's a third one. There's a third one I want to, three. I said two, but three. There's a third one I want to talk about. And this one is a tricky one for me sometimes. I find myself that I will trick myself in this one. So it is self-sabotaging. So like I said, there's times that I, usually if I tell somebody, like if they gave a book suggestion and I really did want, like I would say something and I will read it and I will let them know that I read it, that I've enjoyed it, that this was good content, good stuff and all that. But the self-sabotage part of me is where my yoga comes into play. So let's say example, if I had a call that I needed to do with a client, or if there was, a discovery call that was on my books, and yet I went ahead and booked yoga at that time, knowing that I was keeping that open for my discovery calls. I've done this. And then I'm like, oh, I guess I'll do yoga another time. I've got to do my discovery call. Like, that's important. I've got to do this instead. And so my yoga takes a back seat. And then instead of looking at it as though like I could schedule that differently, I go, I'm just being too busy. I just don't have time for that. When in fact, I could have blocked that out and I could have chosen that time was yoga time. I could make that choice, but I self-sabotage myself on that, right? So I'm using it kind of as an excuse and kind of saying, oh, I just don't have time for that, instead of owning what I could take control of if I wanted to. Again, right, that unawareness of our disbelief. And not thinking that we have enough time, or not thinking that I can't schedule things, I can't get that down. Now, there are times in our lives where we feel like, again, that overwhelm, that confusion, we start to blame other people. You can see how they kind of stack on each other when we start to do these things in our lives. And so the self-sabotage can also come into play of, say, if you're a mom or a dad and you have kids at home and let's say they get sick and you're like, oh, I can't go to my meeting because they're sick. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but if you see a pattern where you keep on like not allowing yourself to do the things that you want to do, whether it's work related or whether it's relationship related, right? Whether it's your date night, like, oh, I can't go on a date night with my husband because this client scheduled this, when I could have blocked that out. So we self-sabotage ourselves and we're unaware that we're doing that. We think that it's just because we're so busy. It's just because I have to keep my books open for everybody or I won't get any clients. So again, it's these thoughts that we're having about our thoughts. This is just an example for me, or whatever you're doing with work-wise, right? We think, well, I can't schedule this time off because if I do, I've got all these other things to do. So we start to believe this stuff so much that we aren't willing to let go and see it as just a thought we're having about something that we believe that's the way that it is. So we don't see our disbelief in that. Instead, we think that that's just how it is. And we do that in our relationships. We do that in our work. We do that on all different, levels in our life. And so we find ourselves self-sabotaging ourselves, that we make a plan, something else comes up, right? Something's better comes up, and we go, oh, I just can't do that. I have to do this instead. Instead of making the plan and going, that's how I show up. Because that is one thing I work really hard when I'm working with clients is self-trust. That's it. That is one people talk about, like self-care, self-love, all that kind of stuff. Self-trust, the bigger and stronger you can make that connection, you really start to make big strides in your life. The more that you see that happening in your life, it's amazing what can happen at that time. All right, my friends. So in today's video, we talked about unawareness of our disbelief. And I shared with you some thoughts that we have, like, I can't believe this is happening to me. This shouldn't be happening. Something's gone wrong. We have those thoughts. But also 3 different things, right? We find ourselves blaming each other, blaming somebody else, Blaming each other happens too. But blaming somebody else. We find ourselves in confusion, think we need more information. We find ourselves self-sabotaging, and we decide if something better comes along, then we'll go do that instead, or we use it as an excuse of why we're not getting something else done. These are ways in which we find ourselves using our beautiful brains, our powerful powerhouse. I think about that, like I used to do Pilates a lot, and the powerhouse, the core powerhouse. And I think, man, my brain's the powerhouse. Like that's what gets me to do Pilates. That's what gets me to my yoga practice is my brain. And so if I look at that powerhouse that I have been given and how I can utilize it the best, amazing things can start happening in my life. I just have to become the observer of it. I have to see it for what it is and not be attached to it. So my friends, in the next video I'm going to be making for video number 2, I'm going to be talking about our awareness of our disbelief. I'm going to share with you some stuff on that as well as we dive into kind of creating that neutral ground. Because right now, when you're just kind of observing and seeing it for what it is and just seeing the pattern in your life, you're just kind of bringing in information. You're kind of just kind of gathering the things that you can and to make the most out of what you know right now. All right, my friends, thank you for tuning in. It was great to have you join me, and make sure to join me again next week. And also make sure to share this with friends. If you have friends that are unaware of their disbelief, send this to them. Give them something to look into. Maybe they're curious about their own self and that they feel like they're stuck. Send them some information. It might be helpful to them, and friends always love to know that you were thinking about them. All right, and if you want to dive in to a discovery call, make sure to book that as well. All right, my friends, we will talk to you next week. Have a great week. Bye. This next step is easy. Book your free discovery call at www.angeladryden.com today. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel and share this information with a friend. Until next time, take care of you.